wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant, I don't even...
Hey y'all, how we doing? Welcome to episode 76 of the Fourth Down Forum podcast. Now, what are we going to be covering today? The biggest piece of news from my team, obviously, we got to address the elephant in the room. The Baltimore Ravens backed out of the Maxx Crosby trade. They say this is due to a failed physical. They didn't like what they seen in the medical. They used the Cowboys team doctor. The Raiders and Ravens got a bunch of he said going on. So, yeah, now the Ravens have a Trey Hendrickson instead of a Maxx Crosby, and they have their first round picks back. But that is not what we're talking about today. Oh, part of it is, actually. But here's what I got to say on the matter. It's business. Not a lot of people are going to like it. But that brings us into today's episode. Today, we are going to be covering NFL free agency. And there's a lot to get into. So without further ado, let's get into it. Obviously, I'm going to be consulting the computer. So if y'all see me looking away from the screen a lot, nothing personal. But to write this all down, it would be way too much. So we're going to go by what CBS Sports has on here and go from there. And, the Arizona Cardinals, starting off with the big one for them. They released veteran quarterback Kyler Murray, who was drafted by them in 2019. That's the big story out of the Arizona Cardinals. Is this a ploy to tank for Arch Manning into next year's draft, potentially? Who knows? Time will tell there. But let's see some moves that they made and who they retained. They signed offensive guard Isaac Seumalo to a 3-year, $31.5 million deal. They signed Tyler Algier to a 2-year, $12.25 million deal, up to $16.25 million with incentives. DL Roy Lopez, 2 years, $11.5 million. Kendrick Bourne, 2 years, $10 million. Quarterback Gardner Minshew, 1 year, $5.7 million, up to $8.25 in incentives. Offensive lineman Matt Pryor in a 1-year deal, and long snapper Casey Kreiter, terms not disclosed. They retained Blake Gilkin, defensive line LJ Collier, running back Zonovan Knight, and Chad Ryland. Nothing too special there for the Arizona Cardinals. They're in a rebuild mode, obviously. And the telling sign with that is they got rid of their star quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons, however, they signed wide receiver Jahan Dotson, 2 years, $50 million. Nick Folk, 2-year, $9 million, $4 million guaranteed. They signed Jake Bailey, 3-year, $9 million. Austin Hooper, 1 year, $3.25. Edge Cameron Thomas to a 1-year, $3.1 million deal. Tua Tagovailoa to a 1-year, $1.3 million deal. And that kind of gets into the Dolphins, who released Tua, but we'll get into that a little later in the episode. Defensive line Chris Williams, 1 year, $2.5. Edge rusher and Aziz something, 1 year. Channing Tindall, 1 year. OC Corey Levin, 1 year. Another wide receiver and a linebacker, terms not disclosed. And they retained Kyle Pitts on the franchise tag of $15.5 million guaranteed. Now, we get back into my Baltimore Ravens, who signed edge Trey Hendrickson. 4 years, $112 million, $60 million guaranteed. This comes from the fallout of the Maxx Crosby trade not going through. They also signed offensive guard, I should say, not OG. John Simpson, 3 years, $30 million, so he's presumed to start or compete for the left guard spot. Safety Jalen Hawkins, 2 years, $10 million, so that is the replacement for a safety we lost. And tight end Durham Smythe, terms not disclosed. So he was with our offensive coordinator and, Declan Doyle, thank you. We also retained quarterback Tyler Huntley, 2 years, $11 million. I don't know why we signed Cooper Rush last year. Chidobe Awuzie, 1 year, $5 million. I personally like that move. He was one of our better corners last year. And the big splash free agent here, wide receiver Dayton Wade, I say sarcastically. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the other big news, the Ravens and Lamar did not agree to a contract extension yet, should be the key word there. But Lamar did restructure his deal to free up some cap space. The Buffalo Bills, they got wide receiver DJ Moore. I believe they traded for him. They signed Bradley Chubb to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal, up to $52.5 million, $29 million guaranteed. Now, the Bills had to do this because they pivoted off of Trey Hendrickson, who they were in the mix with until we signed him. So that Crosby backing out had ripple effects. Cornerback D. Alfred, 3 years, $21 million. Quarterback Kyle Allen, 2 years, $4.1. They retained McGovern, Dawson Knox, and their punter. We move on to the Carolina Panthers, who signed Eagles edge Jalen Phillips, 4 years, $120 million. Linebacker Devin Lloyd, 3 years, $45 million. Quarterback Kenny Pickett to a 1 year up to $7.5 million. Luke Fortner, John Mechie, and another offensive tackle. And they retained David Moore, Robert Rochelle, Evans, Mitchell, Gibson, Ray, and Isaiah Simmons. The Chicago Bears signed safety Kobe Bryant to a 3-year, $40 million deal. Devin Bush to a 3-year, $30 million. A defensive tackle, Neville Gallimore, 2 years, $12 million. A return specialist and Khalif Raymond, 1 year, up to $5.1 million. A defensive back in Cam Lewis, Jedrick Willis, and Katavius Street. They traded for Garrett Bradbury. They retained Braxton Jones, linebacker DeMarco Jackson, quarterback Case Keenum, and edge Daniel Hardy. The Cincinnati Bengals, who were having a splash free agency, I say ironically, signed edge Boy Mafe to a 3-year, $60 million deal, and safety Brian Cook to a 3-year, $42.5 million deal. They also retained offensive guard Dalton Reisner. The Cleveland Browns, another division rival, have signed offensive guard Zion Johnson to a 3-year, $49.5 million deal. Center Elton Jenkins, which this one I am upset about because I know the Ravens were in on him after we lost Linderbaum. We'll get into why we lost Linderbaum in a little bit. But Elton Jenkins, 2 years, $24 million, $20 million guaranteed after he was released by the Green Bay Packers. Quincy Williams, 2 years, $17 million. Jack Stoll, 1 year, and they traded for Titus Howard. They retained safety Ronnie Hickman and OG Tevin Jenkins. The Dallas Cowboys signed former Cardinals safety Jalen Thompson to a 3-year, $33 million deal. Safety PJ Locke, 1 year, $5 million. Defensive tackle Tito, I'm not even going to attempt to announce that, to a 1 year, $3 million deal. They signed quarterback Sam Howell to a 1 year deal. And they signed Tyrus Wheat to a 1 year deal. They also traded for Rashawn Gary via the Packers. They retained George Pickens with a franchise tag. So it's 1 year, $27.29 million guaranteed. They put a tender second round on Brandon Aubrey. Edge Sam Williams, Josh Butler, and Reddy Stewart. They also made a couple of trades earlier today. I think it was some D-line help that they traded away. The Denver Broncos, they retained J.K. Dobbins, 2 years, $20 million deal. Justin Stannard, 3 years, $18 million. Tight end Adam Trautman, 3 years, $17 million. Alex Singleton, 2 years, $15.5 million. Sam Ellinger on a 1 year, $2 million deal, and their fullback on a 1 year deal. The Detroit Lions signed Cade Mays, 3 years, $25 million. Cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, 1 year, $4 million deal. They got Teddy Bridgewater, so backup quarterback to, their starter, who is Jared Goff. Running back Isaiah Pacheco, and the reason the Lions had to bring in Pacheco to pair with Gibbs is because David Montgomery no longer is with them. Why is he no longer with them? We'll get into that when we get to the team he's with. They also traded for offensive guard Juice Scruggs, and they retained Malcolm Rodriguez. The Green Bay Packers, they signed Javon Hargrave. This was earlier today because the Vikings released him. Because officially, this is the first day, at the time of this recording, this is the first official day of free agency. They signed Benjamin St. Just, cornerback, 2 years, $10 million. And they signed returner Sky Moore to a 1-year deal. Traded for Zaire Franklin, retained Sean Ryan, Chris Brooks, Darian Kennard, Brenton Cox Jr., Nick Neiman, Christian Welch, Josh Wiley, Jonathan Ford. The Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans have been pretty active in free agency, I will say. They signed safety Reed Blankenship to a 3-year, $24.75 million deal. This means the Exciting Whites no longer a duo because Cooper DeJean, however you want to pronounce it, is in Philly. Reed is now in Houston. Not the first time they've had a Reed in Houston, though. How is it? Ed Reed should have never been a Houston Texan, and I'll stand on that. But I digress. Braden Smith, 2 years, $20 million, 13.5 guaranteed. Logan Hall, 2 years, $7 million. Edge Dominique Robinson, 1 year, up to $4 million. Linebacker Jake Hummel, former Ravens linebacker Jake Hummel, 2 years. Foster Moreau, terms not disclosed. Traded for running back David Montgomery via the Lions, and they traded for a punter, Kai Kroger, via the Saints. They retained Daniel Hunter on a 1-year, $40-point-something million deal. Damn. They retained their kicker in Kai Fairbairn, Dalton Schultz, Sheldon Rankins, Trent Brown, Naquan Jones, and MJ Stewart. The Indianapolis Colts. Now, the big story with the Colts is Danny Dimes, Indiana Jones, is not on the tag this year. He officially agreed to a 2-year, $80 million deal as of this morning. They signed Arden Key, 2-year, $20 million deal. Michael Clemens, 3 years, $17.5 million, up to $18.5 million. Quarterback Daniel Jones, like we just said, $88 million was the actual number there, with $60 million guaranteed. Blake Grupe, 1 year, $1.4 million, and they traded for Colby Woolen from the Packers. The Jacksonville Jaguars signed running back Chris Rodriguez, 2 years, $10 million. There was a reason they had to get in on the running back market. Cornerback Montreal Brown, 3 years, $33 million. Linebacker Dennis Gardick, 2 years, terms not disclosed. Quentin Morris, 1 year, $3 million. The Kansas City Chiefs, the big one for them, 2 big ones for them, I will say. One, they re-signed Travis Kelce for a 14th year. The bigger question here is, what does that mean for Donna Kelce's home renovations? But the big news for the Chiefs outside of Travis Kelce returning for another season is that they got former Seahawks running back, Super Bowl Seahawks running back, Kenneth Walker, 3 years, $45 million. They also got safety Alohi Gilman from the Ravens, 3 years, $24.75 million, 15 guaranteed. And Tyquan Thornton. It looks like they haven't retained anyone. The Las Vegas Raiders, who I'm sure you know, as that Taylor Swift song goes, us and the Raiders probably now have bad blood. One, they traded for Taron Johnson via the Bills. They were busy in free agency. I will say that much. They signed Tyler Linderbaum, former Ravens center, to a 3-year, $81 million deal, $60 million guaranteed. Not to say the Ravens didn't try. We offered 4 years, $88 million, but, Linderbaum wanted a shorter deal. Edge Kwity Paye, 3 years, $48 million. Quay Walker, 3 years, $40.5 million, 28 guaranteed. Nakobe Dean, 3 years, $36, $20 million guaranteed. And wide receiver Jalen Nailor, 3 years, $35 million. Kicker Matt Gay, 1 year, $1.6 million. They retained Eric Stokes, Malcolm Kuntz, Thomas Booker, Jordan Meredith, Will Putman, Charles Snowden, and Tristan McCullum. And now they have a Maxx Crosby back on their roster because that trade didn't go through. The Los Angeles Chargers signed Tyler Biadasz, 3 years, $30 million. Former Ravens tight end Charlie Collier, 3 years, $24.3 million, 17 guaranteed. Cole Strange, 2 years, $13 million. And Alec Ingold to a 2-year, $7.5 million. They retained Tier Dart, 3 years, $30.75 mil extension. Trey Pipkins, linebacker Deshaun Phillips, Khalil Mack on a 1-year, $18 million deal. Trevor Pennon on a 1-year, $4.5 million. Deanne Leonard, 1 year, $1.82 million. Kamide Vidal, exclusive rights tender. Jarrett Patterson and Kendall Williams, terms not disclosed. The Los Angeles Rams, they were another team who was busy, in free agency. Cornerback Trent McDuffie was traded from the Chiefs to the Los Angeles Rams and then extended 4 years, $124 million. They also signed cornerback Jalen Watson to pair with McDuffie. 3 years, $51 million, 34 guaranteed. Signed a long snapper, retained Sam Curl and Tyler Higbee. The Miami Dolphins, now the Dolphins, their big thing was they released Tua Tagovailoa, one of my friend's favorite quarterbacks. No, just kidding. But they signed quarterback Malik Willis, I believe he was the Packers backup last year, to a 3-year, $67.5 million guarantee. And to that, I say Malik Willis has Zach Orr and the Baltimore Ravens to thank for that contract, because we made that man look like a star last season. Anyways, the Dolphins signed Zane Gonzalez, Joshua Uche, defensive back Lonnie Johnson Jr., safety Zane Anderson. They retained Greg Dulcich, Willie Gay Jr., Darrell Baker, and AJ Green III, who is a corner, not a receiver. The Minnesota Vikings signed cornerback James Pierre to a 2-year, $8.5 million deal. Retained Eric Wilson, Aaron Jones, Tavare Thomas, their long snapper, Andrew DePiola, Jalen Redmond, Ivan Pace Jr., Bo Richard, and Xavier Scott. They signed... Sorry, this isn't the Vikings. This is the Patriots, the New England Patriots, who were coming off a Super Bowl loss. But they did make it to the Super Bowl. They signed wide receiver Romeo Doubs, formerly of the Packers, 4 years, $68 million, up to $80 million with incentives. Offensive guard Elijah Vera Tucker, 3 years, $42 million. Former Ravens pass rusher Draymond Jones, 3 years, $39.5 million. Fullback Reggie Gilman, 3 years, $12 million. Kevin Bynar to a 1-year, $9 million, and I believe that one just hit earlier today as well. Outside linebacker Jesse Luketa, linebacker KJ Britt, tight end Julian Hill, and Mike Brown. They retained quarterback Tommy DeVito to a 2-year, $7.4 million guarantee. The New Orleans Saints, their big move in free agency, in this free agency frenzy, they signed Travis Etienne to a 4-year, $52 million deal. Now that begs the question, is Alvin Kamara going to get moved to a different team? Offensive guard David Edwards, 4 years, $61 million. Caden Ellis, 3 years, $33 million. They signed a punter in Ryan White, 4 years, $14 million. And tight end Noah Fant, 2 years, $8.7 million. And retained John Ridgway. The New York Giants, or as I like to call them, the NFC East version of the Baltimore Ravens. No hate at all, but y'all will see why I said that in just a minute. One, they have our former head coach in John Harbaugh. They're allowed to do that, obviously, because we fired him. But let's see. This one hurt right here. And shout out to my friend Mal of the 14 Rings podcast. Diehard Giants fan. So happy for her that her team's got all these players. Sad for myself that we lost a lot of these players, but I digress. Tight end Isaiah Likely, 3 years, $40 million deal, New York Giants. Linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, 3 years, $36 million. The punter. The Giants took our punter in Jordan Stout. 3 years, $12.3 million. They got cornerback Greg Newsome, 1 year, $8 million. They got fullback Patrick Ricard, which I think this one hurt me the most out of all the Ravens players they took. That are Likely. Safety Adarius Washington of the Baltimore Ravens, 1 year, $3 million. They signed Greg Newsome and kicker Jason Sanders to a one-year deal. They retained offensive tackle Jermaine Illuminer, which I believe at one point he also played for the Ravens. Linebacker Micah McFadden, Zaire Barnes, Evan Neal, Chris Mahertz, Gunnar Olszewski, Isaiah Hodgins, Caleb Murphy, and Art Green. The New York Jets. Now, the funniest thing the Jets did in free agency is they traded the Raiders for quarterback Geno Smith. None of us thought Geno Smith was ever going to play another down for the New York Jets after he was punched in the face by a teammate. Anyway, here are the other moves they made. Edge Joseph Osayi, 3 years, $36 million. Linebacker Demario Davis, 2 years, $22 million. Offensive guard Dylan Parham, 2 years, $16 million. David Onyemata, forgive me if I butchered that, defensive tackle. Edge Kingsley Inargebear, I probably butchered that too, sorry. Safety Dane Belton, cornerback Nashawn Wright, fullback Andrew Beck, Dane Belton, he's on here twice for some reason, and Cade York. And they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins and gave him a 3-year, $40 million deal. So some in-division trades. And the other big thing they did is they put the franchise tag on Breece Hall. Retained Max Mitchell, Joanne Briggs, a linebacker, and a tight end. The Philadelphia Eagles retained Jordan Davis, Grant Calcaterra, signed cornerback Reek Willen to a 1-year, $15 million deal, and Johnny Munt, tight end, 1-year deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Steelers have been active in free agency. The only thing is, who is their quarterback going to be? And I'm not even hating. I'm genuinely wondering, like, is it going to be Rodgers? Is it going to be Kyler Murray? Is it going to be somebody else? Is it going to be Will Howard? But what did the Steelers do? They traded for Michael Pittman Jr. via the Colts to pair along DK Metcalf, extended him to a 3-year, $59 million deal, got cornerback Jamil Dean, 3 years, $36.5 million, signed Rico Dow in free agency, a safety in Darnell Savage, and a punter. They retained Hayward, Asante Samuel Jr., Cole Holmgren, and a defensive lineman. Now, the 49ers did something that I liked, and that was they signed Mike Evans to a 3-year deal, $60.4 million guaranteed. They also signed an offensive tackle in Veteran Lowe and Brett Toth. They retained Eddie Pinheiro, Jake Tongs, Garrett Wallow, and Patrick Taylor. The reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks, retained Rashid Shaheed, 3 years, $51 million deal. Josh Jobe, 3-year, $24 million. Drake Thomas, Jake Bobo, Chris Stoll, Josh Jones, George Holland, safety Ty Okada, and AJ Finley. Terms not disclosed on a lot of those. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their big thing is they lost Mike Evans. Linebacker, Alex Anzalone, 2 years, $17 million. Kenneth Gainwell, 2 years, $14 million. They retained, and Jake Brennan were signings. Kate Otten and Sean Tucker were players that were picked up. The Tennessee Titans, they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 years, $70 million. Defensive tackle Jonathan Franklin Myers, 3 years, $63 million, $42 million guaranteed. They signed some corners in Alante Taylor and Cordell Flott to some multi-year deals. Daniel Bellinger, 3 years, $24 million. Center Austin Schlottman, 2 years, $9 million. Defensive tackle Jordan Elliott, 2 years, $18 million. Punter and Tommy Townsend, 2 years, up to $6 million. Offensive guard Cordell Volson, 1 year, $4.2, $15 million. Quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Corner Josh Williams, Bryce Oliver, and Malik Herron. They retained Joey Sly, Morgan Cox, CJ Ravenel, and Garrett Dellinger. The Washington Commanders, who I would argue have probably been the most active team outside of the Raiders and Giants in free agency. Holy, you know what? They made some moves. They signed Edge Odafe Owe, formerly of the Ravens and Chargers, 4 years, $100 million, $68 million guaranteed. They signed linebacker Leo Chenal of the Chiefs, 3 years, $24.75 million. Defensive tackle Tim Settle. Tight end Chig Ozium Okonkwo, 3-year deal. Cornerback Amik Robertson, 2-year deal. Safety Nick Cross and Kalavion Chasen. They retained Laramie Tunsil, backup quarterback Marcus Mariota, linemen in Andrew Wiley and Nick Allegretti, punter Tresway, 1-year extension, Traylon Burks, kicker Drake Moody. I said Drake, it's Jake Moody. Defensive tackle Drake Jackson, defensive tackle Shy Tuttle, which I almost said Turtle, and Beatrice Wise. And yeah, that is so far all the movement that has been happening in free agency, unless at the time of recording this episode, something else has come out. Now, there are still plenty of players on the market. Kyler Murray is still out there. There are still some positions at the guard spot. You know, there are still some pass rushers. There are still some, I think, corners out there. So we get into these waves. You get into your first wave, your second wave. The fallout from, you know, my team and the Raiders ordeal, I have now worked on some other stuff for the channel. I wasn't, you know, I was still going to do a mock draft episode, but now you factor the Ravens back into that. Anyways, these are some positions I'm hoping the Ravens still tackle, because with the cap space we opened up, we did replace Colaire at tight end. We did replace Adarius Washington, so we have that third safety spot filled. So I believe next year's team will field Starks, Kyle Hamilton, and there was a player we signed from the Patriots. I'm hoping we make more moves. I know DeCosta at his presser today said we're going to bring in more O-line help. It's kind of what we've been asking for. We want the O-line solidified. Who do I think are the winners of free agency? The Las Vegas Raiders, the New York Giants, and the Washington Commanders. And you would be hard-pressed to argue with me there. I'm not saying you can't. We can have a discussion about it. And question of the day, because I want to get back into that. What is your favorite and least favorite free agent signing? I think in recent years for me, I'd be able to answer that and say Earl Thomas is probably one of my least favorite ones. At the time, thought it was going to work out. Didn't work out. And Derrick Henry is probably one of my favorite ones in recent memory. And obviously, if this trade would have went through, Maxx Crosby would have been up there. But, you know, things happen. Things coming up on the channel. As I said, we just did the, me and Michael actually before recording this episode. You know Michael, y'all know him as Pan Flaps. He's been on the channel before. He has his own channel. Y'all should give him a follow. I'll drop the link in the description below. We worked on the mock draft earlier before I even hopped on here and recorded this. So that's coming up. You'll have other things coming up. You know, once we get the schedule release in May, I'm going to do an episode on that. I have a layout for a baseball episode, not World Baseball Classic stuff, just because there's a lot going on there. Not saying it's not something I enjoy or anything like that, but I have an episode for when we get into the actual MLB season, and it's like a week opening weekend predictions thing, because y'all know baseball's something I cover probably the least on this channel. Wrestling podcasts are probably going to be more prominent on the channel until we get back into football season and things of that nature. But other than that, you know, I've been posting shorts. I've been trying to stay consistent. Appreciate the love, appreciate the support, appreciate everybody telling me that, hey, you know, get back on you're kind of slipping, get back on, you know, do what you need to do. So much love there. We are still doing the 500 sub giveaway once we hit 500 subs. Last I checked, the channel was hovering around close to 310, I want to say. Maybe a little less than that. But once we hit 500 subs, the winner of the second giveaway will be picked, and you will win a mini helmet of your favorite collegiate or NFL team. Other than that, this has been episode 76 of the Fourth Down Forum podcast. Appreciate the love, appreciate the support, and I hope y'all continue to support me and grow with me on this journey. Much love.
Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces.